Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much to Chinachem and Hong Kong GBC for inviting me to speak at this conference. And I would like to also just maybe have a show of hands. Has everyone here been to Daegun? Oh, good. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. So then in that case, I will spend as little time describing what Daegun is and talking more about some of the programs and the initiatives that we have been rolling out after Daegun has opened since May 2018. So as you all know, Daegun is a fruition of a partnership between the Hong Kong government and the Hong Kong Jockey Club. It resulted in a 10-year revitalization program, and we've been open for over 4 years now. And we have actually been able to welcome more than 10,000 visitors since then. So that's quite an overwhelming number. Now, what I wanted to talk about today is sometimes the decisions that we have to make as a heritage cultural site in Hong Kong in bringing up, one, awareness of the visitors about the themes of sustainability, but also how we engage them to participate with us on those themes. And the medium and the tools that are used by an art and cultural organization, of course, are quite different from policymakers or development firms. And a lot of times, we are using rather soft messaging, as well as programs and art exhibitions and campaigns to generate that awareness. So I would go now to the first video that I would like to share with you today. That first video comes from a lady who lives around Central. And after you've watched that video, I would describe how we worked with her on a very important project in Daegun.
My name is Fong Fong. Well, everyone calls me Fong Fong Tse here. I have lived on this street for many years. I really love plants. I find that after Chinese New Year or after Christmas, people throw out their plants and they would die. And then I started to pick up the plants they throw out, and then I would replant them, and then they would grow again. And I'm very happy about that. I hung these plants out because I have bigger and bigger plants and I didn't have enough space. And then I suddenly found that there's this fence, this wide fence nearby. And starting from 2018, I started to move my plants over to the fence area. And I think now there are over 120 plants near the fence area. Those living nearby tell me that, oh, you're going to lose all your plants after a few days. I said, that's okay. If they want to steal the pots, that's okay. They steal one, I put back two. I sometimes ask people if they want to bring a pot home. And it doesn't interfere with people walking up, and those who walk down actually really appreciate it. And I find that people actually take lots of pictures over here now. It has become like a destination point. And sometimes when people ask me about the plants and flowers, I tell them stories. And then I feel that, you know, people can really feel what I'm doing. It's just not me who's doing that. People actually enjoy the plants, and that is my motivation. I'm willing to take in plants thrown away by others, and then I would just move them over there after they regrow. Oh, isn't this beautiful? Well, I love my 122 plants, and now more people love them, and this world will become more beautiful and a happier world with people all loving my plants.
Okay, the reason I showed that video was that was actually one of our community initiatives last year. Before we tried to put up a renovation project for Daegun in the prison yard. Now, that was also a video that was exhibited in the July 2021 exhibition called Serendipity on the Street. And I want to echo to some of the previous speakers who've just spoken about how space-constrained historical buildings and infrastructure in Hong Kong and the density in Central can make greening spaces perhaps very challenging, or it could make certain modifications very difficult to implement. So being a cultural site in Hong Kong that is consisting of 3 declared monuments, the Central Police Station, the Central Magistracy, and Victoria Prison, we did have quite a lot of aspirations to convert most of the open areas to have more greenery, shade, etc., but also abiding to the heritage conservation values. Not every initiative could be implemented without infringing on those heritage conservation principles. So when we looked at our prison yard, and for those of you who have been to prison yard, you'll realize that there is a tree area consisting of very old heritage trees that were already there before the site opened. And there was also a very tall 20 to 30 meter wall that's made up of granite. It's the revetment wall. It used to be the wall that's height keep increasing as Chancery Lane's building got higher, and to also stop prisoners from escaping the Victoria Prison. So it's a very solid mineralized surface that gets increasingly and terribly hot with the rising temperatures that we are facing today in the world of climate change. And also a lower E Hall area. So if you look at this picture, you will realize that besides the 4 trees that we have, the prison yard is actually, as a public space, very difficult for public to actually hang out and relax in a very hot Hong Kong summer. So we thought, hey, why don't we get together the community of residents in Hong Kong? And we put up an exhibition project called Serendipity on the Street, because we wanted to actually find inspiration of the little things that Hong Kong residents organically formed by themselves were trying to do to make their living spaces around them more habitable and more pleasant. So Feng Feng Jie was one of the ladies which we found. And it was amazing how a singular person's efforts to just green that little circular pathway resulted in so much interest. So we did bring her into the site as one of our participants. And what was also interesting is when she was engaged with a lot of the visitors on site, she would start a plant-giving campaign, or she would teach people how to green their own spaces. And the other thing that we also talked about with a lot of the residents around Central was they wanted a shadier prison yard. Means they want bigger trees, they want more shade, because there's just so much little area to get shade in the open. So what could we do when actually we could not make a lot of modifications in a heritage site? There was also a discussion by some residents who said, can we green the whole prison wall, the revetment wall, and make it not so hot and reflective in summer? So those are the tough conversations that we did have to have and engage with various heritage consultants and the residents to find that balance. So the next video I'm going to show you, so this was the workshop, and everyone created their kind of ideal version of prison yard in these workshops. And they spent actually quite a lot of time with us. So 4 weekends, 2-3 hours each time. So this is an interview with Sammy Au. Sammy Au is our resident, I would say, long-standing arborist in Dai Kwun, who takes care of all the heritage old trees on site. Because we can't really dig up a whole heritage spot to put in new trees as and when we want. So the only trees we got to have, we inherited, are the ones that we will have to maintain, and the ones that we have to keep healthy and alive. So how does this get changed?
Well, actually, these old trees are part of our heritage. We see this historical background because this shows the historical value of the place. And in Central, basically a concrete forest. With such a large tree here providing shade, it can bring along birds coming over to sing and bringing you fresh air. This is a very special place. In terms of the environment, we cannot make any changes to it. We can only change the way to how we preserve it to help the tree better adjust to the location.
Okay, so what do we have to do to respond to the neighborhood needs of a greener prison yard? What we did was we actually expanded the planters from the red original planter rings to a slightly connected, bigger planter. And the reason was because the heritage trees themselves could only grow as much shade as their roots would allow. So if the roots were constricted, the shade and the crown of the tree would equally be constricted. So we did a project which we just completed, which is to connect and eventually expand the planter space. And this is what it looks like now. Of course, the tree shades are going to take a number of years to grow. This just got completed last year. But already increasingly, that space is now having more visitors. People love to sit around the large connected planters, especially on the weekends. So sometimes projects like that, by just listening to what the residents really needed and us working with the specialists, we can come up with ways of still retaining the heritage integrity, but also bring about a greater sense of engagement with the community and their needs. This is Lower E Hall, again, a space that used to be mineralized, and on top you can see that were the Lego blocks built by the residents asking for plants or trees or sitting area. And now you could see this in this rendering that we have actually created niches of plant-surrounded space. And if you would to just come at morning, lunchtime, you would see during especially the fifth wave, people were using it with their children as a studying space, and people were using it as lunch space. And it's a really wonderful new intervention. But again, it was something we had to do only with potted plants because we couldn't actually introduce irreversible infrastructural changes to the heritage site. So if you haven't come to Tai Kwun for a while, please do. And last but not least, I would show you one last video, which is our existing exhibition, our current exhibition at the JC Contemporary Building. It's called Behind Your Eyelid. It features the international artist Pipilotti Rist. It would close by the end of November 27th. So I would like to also share with you how contemporary artists that we work with try to make aware or conscious the themes of sustainability in Tai Kwun's programs.
Here we are standing in the staircase of Tai Kwun Contemporary. And one of the first works people see of that exhibition is actually the so-called Innocent Collection. And the Innocent Collection is a collection of different plastic and PVC wrappings we see every day in all the consumer goods. It's something we normally don't even look at. What Pipilotti Rist did is she uses these, she collects them, she uses them, and puts them on windows. And with that, they become beautiful objects. She calls them instant diamonds. And people look at these things, the things they throw away every day, in a very new way. And so the Innocent Collection is somehow also a symbol of something where Pipilotti takes something and changes it and uses light and form and makes it into something beautiful. But it also talks about environmentalism, about our way of just throwing everything away and destroying our whole environment. So there is a deeper message into that work, and I think that is a beautiful thing with a lot of Pipilotti Rist's work. She uses beauty, she uses spectacle to basically communicate different other messages about humanity and the problems we are facing.
So with that, I'd like to welcome you again to Daegun to see that exhibition. I have 20 seconds left, but I just want to say our planet is really beautiful, and let's work together to keep it that way. Thank you.